Harihi Om. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Shrim Hrim Klim Ganeshwaraya Brahmaswarubhaya Jarave Sarvasiddhi Pradeshaya Vikteshaya Namo Namaha. Om Sri Mahaganapataye Namo Namaha. Om Gajananam Mahakayam Vignarajam Vinayakam Vishvesham Vishvashaksham Ganeshayam Namo Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Tatpurushaya Vitmahe Vakrahundaya Dhimahe Tanno Danti Prachodayat. Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalar Spatikhatrudhim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Yasyadvarada Vakradhyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam Ti Satatam Vishvashremam Tamashraye. Gurud Brahma Gurud Vishnu Gurud Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarvalokanam Bisaje Bhavaroginaha Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Sarveshwararphanamastu. Om Sahanao Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Vidyam Karavavahai Tejasvinhavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That's it. Om Tat Sat. Just repeat what is meant by that prayer. Sahanao Bhavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu. That means, may the divine energy protect both the teacher or the instructor and the student, so the speaker and the listener. Let them both be nourished and protected. Let them work together with great energy, and let the studies bear fruits, so that all types of darkness or ignorance is removed and light is infused where there was darkness. Om, peace, peace, peace. The three peace is for your conscious self, your subconscious self, and your superconscious self. Your physical self, your mental self, and your spiritual self. Right? So, every week I've been saying it so that the journey that we are making is verily protected by the divine. And let's hope it continues to do so. So, here we are at the 15th week. At the 15th week of the journey that began, obviously, 15 weeks ago. Right? For me personally, I must say that it's been an exhilarating journey, right? Right? Not least because, I was doing all the talking, but because of the increase in the amount of, number one, knowledge, and the wisdom that one gets from imparting such knowledge. You only become knowledgeable by imparting knowledge. There's no two ways about it. So I must thank you all for allowing me to do this. And by your very allowance, right, engendering this element of wisdom and Let's see where it takes us, right? See, the thing is, the more, again, I'm speaking from my own experience, right? My own experience. The more I go into this, the more I delve deeper into the ocean of the wisdom of the Upanishads. It's an abyss, an endless ocean, right? The less is the desire to live in this outer world or materialistic world. Seriously. But one is caught by the very web that one has weaved in this ocean of life or samsara. So one has to transcend that, transgress that ocean until it comes to the end of that journey, and then see, where it takes you next. Also, the more you realize, that the less you want, because you're going in deeper and deeper, you're going in deeper and deeper, you're not going out more and more, you're going in, right? More and more, so you're out less and less. Of course, when you're in more and more, you don't want to live in the outer world because there is so much of peace there. There is so much of light inside, right? And then you're at peace with yourself. So you don't want to come out of that, you just want to remain in there. So that is verily the path that every one of us should be on, right? So you realize that there is actually, well, I've said to you on many occasions that you should realize that there is actually very, very little that one needs to live a dharmic life. There is actually very little that one needs to live a dharmic life. But it will also make you realize that for the mass, the mass, the many, the majority, there just isn't enough wants or desires. So the more you engender, the more you engage with your wants and your desires, the more outer you are living, which means the less inner the journey will be. And that is verily everybody's choice, everybody's decision, everybody's judgment to make of their own lives. So I say to each his own, to each his own. All of us have been on the same journey for the last 15 weeks, right? I always say I'm the driver of the bus and I'm going on this journey. And all of you are on the bus. So you have the same perception, you have the same view, you have the same vision as we are trudging along, as we are traveling along. But every single person's experience of that journey would have been different, isn't it? If you recall from the week one, and what we've been through and what you personally have experienced, you will know what I'm talking about, right? Because the number of you who tune in clearly says that, there is a yearning for this knowledge. You clearly enjoy what you're listening to, so you come back for more. But that's not the point here. The point is, by coming back every week and listening, of course, there is the materialistic or the outer world aspect of the certificate of completion. You give those 14-week codes or 13-week codes and you get your certificate. But what's the point of having a paper when you don't have that knowledge that the paper says you have? Or you should have. So my question is, you've been on this journey with me the last 15 weeks. What have you learned? What have you learned? How is that going to affect you, right? How is that going to engender any form of transformation from within? Transformation cannot come from outside, right? Giving you a warm cup of tea does not engender transformation. It must come from inside. So much so that you'll realize that tea is not going to do me any good. No more tea for me. That sort of realization, right? It's time for you to reflect. And this, as I said, it's quite profound, right? It's quite poignant for me because this is the last Sunday of 2021. And this journey, to many, the pandemic was a curse, right? From a Vidya perspective, from a Jnana perspective, right? From a Buddhi perspective, it has been a blessing for all those of you who've joined me since 2020. We started sometime in February or March, I can't remember. Right? We looked at the entire scope of Bhaja Govindam, all 31 verses. Right? And I did, lots of individual topics before moving on to, 3 weeks of karma. And then we looked at, solid analysis of the Bhagavad Gita, all 18 chapters. Right? And I say solid, I mean solid, right? And then in this year, we looked at, we started with Ramayana. Again, few individual topics here and there. And then, of course, we began this 15-week, marathon on the Upanishads. And what I've done with you is not even 25% of what is out there, right? If you think this is a lot, then that should tell you the extent of the journey that you have to make going forward, right? So you have to think, what have I learned? Where am I going with this thing that I've learned, right? What did he tell us about the Vedas when he started? What was the important focus of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad? Then he moved on to Chandogya Upanishad. Then he ventured into Taittiriya Upanishad before going into Aitreya Upanishad, then Kaushitaki Upanishad, then Kena Upanishad, then Katha Upanishad, then Ishavasya Upanishad, then Prashna Upanishad, then Mundaka, Mandukya, Shweta Ashvattara Upanishad, and finally last week we covered Brahmanubhava Upanishad. And here we are today at the concluding session. So let me just remind you of the focus of each one of the Upanishads before I give you some takeaways, that you should carry with you. When you plan a journey, you always plan to take some things with you, isn't it? Whether it's a bottle of water or a fruit or, some food or some sustenance, whatever. Everybody has their own agenda when they are making, like planning for a road trip. And different people take different things according to their needs, according to their wants, and in some cases, according to their desires, right? Some people will make a few stops along the journey. Some will make just one stop, maybe halfway. Some will say, no, I stop when the journey ends, right? So when I started with Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, I always said to you that every single Upanishad is tied in with a Veda. Right? So the Vedic scripture that relates to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is Yajur-veda, right? And I told you about Yajur-veda. I said it has got two divisions, the bright or light division or the dark, right? The bright division is a Shukla Paksha, right? Bright, Krishna Paksha, dark. So Shukla Yajur-veda and Krishna Yajur-veda, right? This is, as I said to you then, 15 weeks ago, the oldest Upanishad that is recorded. And what is the central focus? The central focus is it deals with the Atman. Atman as the highest self. And it talks about the immortality of the soul. The soul. And it talks about the illusion of duality or Dvaitam. And it says, only when you transcend this Dvaitam will you see the unity that all is real and all is that one. That is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, right? Now, someone, sent me a message saying, brother, how many of these Upanishads do I need to know? I said, only one. Because they all tell you the same thing. It's like a same song, a famous song that is sung by a dozen different famous singers, right? The same song, but is sung by 12 different people. So the Upanishads are no different. They tell you the same message, but they massage into the message, different, points of pressure so that different people can get, what is intended to be dispatched through listening to it. Some may like the version that one person sings, some may like the other version the other person sings, some may enjoy all 12 versions. So in that sense, right? Then from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, I went to Chandogya Upanishad. And I said, this is related to Sama-veda. Chandogya repeats some of the content from Brihadaranyaka, right? But more in a metric form. That's why it's called Chanda-ogyaha. Chanda means, the different meters. Like all the mantras you chant have got meters, Chanda, and they will say. And they will, every meter, every mantra, for example, will have a rishi that is, attributed, or that is a given credit, that is given, the dependence of that mantra is given to that rishi, right? I mean, it's dedicated to that rishi. And it will also say the Chandaha. So if you take the other Vashishram, for example, it will say, Atha Sri Atharvashi Shramantrajavaparayanam Sri Atharva Maharishihe, right? Gayatri Chandaha, like that it will go. So it will tell you that the mantra you're going to recite, it will tell you who the rishi, who is attributed to, and of course the Chandaha. So Chandogya said some of the things, but in a metric form, right? Of course, the narratives from Chandogya, it's intended to develop the concept of the Atman, but tucked in with the Brahman. And this is, Chandogya is famous for one Mahavakya called Tattvam Asi, that thou art. And how you can get that Tattvam Asi awareness or consciousness through Dharma. That is Chandogya. Then I went to Taititriya Upanishad. And I told you Taititriya is a bird, type of bird, right? And I told you the story about the rishi, right? All the knowledge that was vomited, and then the birds were created to come and take or, consume that knowledge and then delivered like that, if you remember. In the third week, we looked at Taititriya, which is embedded in the Yajur-veda. And again, this continues the topic of the Atman Brahman, and in order to realize the Brahman, how to move away from rituals to intelligence, right? The realization of duality and illusion in the focus and being caught up in the karma gandas or doing karmic actions, And one of the things that I've benefited from in this Upanishads is they have cut me from this karma gandas, and I said to you, I've stopped praying. I do pray, but I don't pray physically. I pray mentally, right? So that's one good thing that has happened to me personally. That's my experience, right? Because once you get that level of understanding, we all say Adi Bhautika, Adi Devika, Adi Atmika. God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, right? Do we accept that as a reality? Are we constantly and consistently conscious of this fact that God is all over? If we are conscious, and we are consistent in that consciousness, then in our minds, we will not be thinking anything wrong. Then in our words, we will not be saying anything wrong. And certainly in our actions, we will not be doing anything wrong because of that constant awareness. When I did Bhaja Govindam, I said, you have to become a member of the CIA. What is a CIA? It's not the American Central Intelligence Agency, right? It's a member of this, spiritual consciousness, constant integrated awareness, CIA, constant integrated awareness. Then you'll be fine, Then we moved on to Aitareya Upanishad, which is tied into the Rig-veda, right? And this spoke about, or rather when I spoke to you about this, I spoke about two things: human condition and the joys that you enjoy is a direct result of the karmas accrued or the dharmic style that you've lived in past lives. Karma, right? Karma has come up or cropped up, in at least 80% of the Upanishads, right? Then we went to Kaushitaki Upanishad, Rishi Kaushitaki. Again, this was embedded in the Rig-veda, right? And again, it repeats some of the things. It talks more on the unity of existence. The same thing which keeps me alive keeps you alive, right? Same things I need to be alive is what you need to be alive. But what I see and what you see and what everybody sees is different, although we may be looking at the same thing. All of us have got a mind, but everybody's mind works differently. So this is what Kaushitaki talks about, how that thinking separates one from God and makes that distance between God and you further and further and further and further. Then we went to Kena Upanishad. What is Kena Upanishad? Right, tied into the Sama-veda. It develops some of the themes from the Kaushitaki. And what does it say? It talks about, the Kena Upanishad, basically the focus was on epistemology. Epistemology. Epistemology means, theory of knowledge. Theory of knowledge. So moving away from action-based consequences to knowledge-based consequences. Right? So self-knowledge was the focus of this particular Upanishad. Then we went to Katha Upanishad. Katha means story. I said to you, this is related to Yajur-veda. And Katha spoke about, this was written like, 300 BC, 200 BC, 100 BC, 500 BC, 600 BC, 800 BC, 1000 BC, right? And it spoke about the importance of living in the present. I always tell you, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. Katha Upanishad said, live today. Don't worry about the past or the future, because there's nothing you can do about it. There is absolutely nothing you can do about it. So why worry about it? Katha also spoke about the concept of moksha, right? And I told you the story about Nachiketa, if you remember, right? Then we spoke about Isha Upanishad. Ishavasyam Jagat Sarvam, I said to you then, right? Yajur-veda. If everything is Ishavasyam, and I think when I spoke to you, I also, told you the meaning behind the Purusha Shuktam, right? Sahasra Sirisha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Bhumim Vishpatho Vitvat Tadishta Angulam. I explained that to you. So if every single thing that vibrates in this universe is Ishavasyam, Sarvam Vishnu Kutumbham, if everything is God's, we are God's, then why is there so many problems? Why is there so much of problems? Man to man, nation to nation, religion to religion, caste to caste, race to race. It's because of this absence of self-knowledge, right? So Isha says, focus on discharging your dharma so that your karma is controlled. So who has control over their own karma? You. Only you can control your thoughts, only you can control your speech, only you can control your actions. So how can your karma be as a result of another person? Someone shouts at you, right? That is their karma. But when you get so angry and you punch, then you have accrued karma. So it is entirely in your hands. I told you the story about Buddha, right? And he went to beg once. This Jamin comes out and he shouts and hurls abuses and mocks him and humiliates him. For 10 minutes he was saying what a parasite Buddha was to the society. And Buddha just listened quietly. And then in the end, Buddha asked him, again, I'm repeating myself here, right? So if you were to give me a gift and I were to refuse it, what would become of that gift? Then Jamin says, you're not only a waste, but you're also stupid. If I give you something and you don't want it, it comes back to me, I'll take it back. Buddha says, in the same way, whatever you've given me for the last 10, 15 minutes, I don't want, I'm not accepting, you take it back. And then Buddha walked away. Now you see, that is response, not reaction. Now you put yourself in Buddha's position. If somebody says one thing, before the second minute of that guy speaking, you would have responded. No, you would not have responded. You would have reacted. Right? Whether the reaction is violent or non-violent, that's a different matter, but you would have definitely reacted. So what is Isha telling you? Isha is telling you, everything is in your hands, power is in your hands, power to think, power to speak, power to act. So why do you blame something else for the consequences and the repercussions and the ramifications that you experience and endure in your life? True, isn't it? Right. So from Isha Upanishad, I went to Prashna Upanishad, right? Prashna. And I said to you, the Veda there is Atharvana-veda, right? Atharvana-veda. And this concerned itself, the central focus was the existential nature of the human condition. Existential nature of the human condition. And this is where it brought out some of the teachings from Bhagavad Gita on the basis of bhakti, right? And I also said to you when I spoke about Prashna Upanishad, how to liberate yourself from the cycle of birth and death and rebirth. Prashna Upanishad, right? Then we went to Mundaka Upanishad. Again, Atharvana-veda is the umbrella Veda. This focused on personal spiritual growth and personal spiritual knowledge as more superior than mere intellectual knowledge. Right? 2 PhDs, 3 PhDs, director of astrophysics in NASA, all that is nothing. Spiritual knowledge is far more superior than intellectual knowledge, because once you hit that level of spiritual knowledge, you become the master of all intelligence. Whatever field you want, you can talk about it. Because your mind is over matter. So all the matter becomes subservient. So which is more powerful? No, you want to read for 3 years and then 5 years and then postdoctorate and then go on and go on and go on and get all this. At the end of the day, boom, useless. But if you hit that spiritual knowledge, that pinnacle, everything else becomes yours. Choice is there, right? Higher knowledge equals self-actualization. Self-actualization, merging with Brahman, that's it. No one can defeat death, because all of us have to go one day. But what happens when we die, that is within our power. And that is within our power in this life, because we are alive now. So from the Mundaka, I went to the Mandukya Upanishad, Atharvana-veda. Right? And this is where I gave you the secret of the Om. I spoke to you about Om, A-U-M-T. I gave you the 4th stage of absolute stillness, where one is without a second. Secondlessness stage, Turiya. Akara, Ukara, Makara, Turiya. Turiya stage. That Turiya stage is where you realize Brahman. Right? It's the highest stage of deep sleep. Not awakening, not dream stage. Deep sleep, complete stillness of that dream stage, of that, deep sleep stage. Then we look at Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Shveta Ashvatara Upanishad, right? This is Yajur-veda. And the focus here is the relationship between the Atman and Brahman. And the importance of self-discipline, right, as a means to acquire self-knowledge, and self-knowledge as a means to actualize that knowledge, self-actualization. You see, talking about bhakti, right, I have to tell you the story about this beggar, right, who was sitting outside the Guruvayur temple. And, he used to live his life on the basis of begging. Bhiksham dehi, bhiksham dehi, bhiksham dehi, every day he used to beg. But he never used to move away. Although there were some 2 or 3 good people who said, why are you outside this temple? Come, I will put you in a ashram somewhere. You can stay every day, you'll get food, you'll get clothes, He said, no, this place, I will not leave this place, because I can see Lord Krishna or Guruvayurappan outside the Guruvayur temple in Kerala, right? Some of you may have been there. It's a wonderful temple. The statue of Krishna is only this big, right? I've been there on many occasions. Anyway, this beggar, every day he used to look at the, the inner procession. Every day at a specific time, they take Lord Krishna out. And where he was set just outside, they never let him inside the temple, right? He was not allowed. And every day, he had only one prayer to make. He said, in my next birth, I want to carry you. I want to carry you. I want to lift you on my shoulders, just like all these people are doing. I want to carry you. I want to carry you. Give me the chance. I'm not even allowed to come into this temple. Every day when he looked at the procession, he only used to pray that. Right? And the day that he died, the last thought on his mind was that of an elephant, because at the time he breathed his last, an elephant was passing by and he said, wow, look at this beautiful elephant. Elephant was the last thing on his mind. And what did I tell you when I spoke about, Prashna Upanishad, I spoke about karma. I said the last thing you think about in your mind is the first thing in your next life, right? That's why I always think good things. Always say the name of the Lord, right? Namasmarana. All this I said to you. So the guy, the beggar in his next life was born as an elephant, right? And he was in the jungles and he was caught and he was brought to this temple. He was tamed and he was brought to this temple. And, they were training him to become one of the main elephants, where every procession, Lord Guruvayurappa is placed on top of its head, or just below the head. And it goes procession around the village, right? But sometimes, elephants can become ill and all of that. So they had 3 or 4 other elephants, so they had a small group of elephants as a result. And then there was a problem of which elephant to choose. Which elephant to choose to carry Lord Guruvayurappa. So they decided to hold a race, right? But this elephant was called Keshavan, right? The elephant that has been born again, right? In the previous birth was the beggar, has been reborn, and they named the elephant Keshavan. All the names of the elephants are names of Lord Krishna or name of, Vishnu. So this one was called Keshavan. Keshavan used to eat anything and everything, right? Whatever it was given. But every day after the Abhishekam and all that, the caretaker of the Keshavan used to feed it some of the butter that was put on Lord Krishna, right? The Abhishekam item that was put on Lord Krishna was given to Keshavan. Keshavan began to eat and eat and eat, and then it stopped eating on a specific day. That day is called Ekadashi. Now, if you look at the days in the week and in the month, right? You have 14 days up to Paurnami, and then from Paurnami to Amavasya, you have another 14 days. So Ekadashi is the first day after Paurnami, right? Sometimes it starts on Paurnami. Ekadashi, Dwadashi, Triyodashi, Chaturdashi, Panchami, Shashti, Shaptami, Ashtami, Navami, Dashami, right? Then you have Ekadashi after that, right? Like that again. Then Dwadashi, right? Now, every Ekadashi, it never ate. It was fasting. In the beginning, these caretakers and people in the temple did not realize that. But every day it used to eat except on that day. And soon they realized the elephant is actually fasting on Ekadashi. Because actually on Ekadashi is the actual festival. Sometimes, they take the procession of Lord Vishnu or Lord Guruvayurappa and so on and so forth. But then in order to qualify, it had to win the race. And it ran the race and it won every time it won the race. Came out number 1. So every year they used to put Guruvayurappan on the back of the elephant and it used to go around the whole village. The elephant didn't realize what it was in its previous life. Nor did the beggar had any inkling that he would be born again as an elephant that carries lot. But you look at his wish. Every day what he wished for and what was the last thought in his mind. And through that last thought, his wish was fulfilled. This is how the Lord relates to every one of us, every single one of us, right? Right? 3 billion people in the world, no problem. What is 3 billion? And I've created the entire universe. So he relates to everybody like that. So what are your thoughts? What is the last thing on your mind? Anyway, for many years, right, the elephant was carrying. And then one year, of course, elephants, like human beings, they also grow old, right? It ran the race and it came out as number 2. Of course, only number 1 can carry Lord. So what they did, they moved this a few miles away from the temple and tied it, under a tree. And the elephant that won was being prepared to carry Lord Guruvayurappan, and that day happened to be Ekadashi. Keshavan, who was tied, some miles away, right, broke. It was a tree. If you want to know what tree, it was a coconut tree. Can you imagine how strong coconut trees are? He broke the chain and it ran all the way, something like 9 or 10 miles. Ran all the way at the time, the exact time when they were carrying Lord Guruvayurappan to put on the elephant that has won the race. This guy went and nudged the other fellow and put his. So the people were shocked. Now, man, if it has done all this and come all this, you put it on it. Right? Then what happened? It took Guruvayurappan all the way around, And it realized that its time is up. Keshavan, the elephant, realized that its time is up. And of course, it also realized that it shouldn't die in the temple because that, that becomes Ashuddhi. Ashuddhi means they have to do, the Kumbhabhishekam and they have to cleanse the temple and a whole thing, right? It's a big, big thing, right? Any death or any spillage of blood, anything like that, they have to do a complete prokshana, or some prokshana. Anyway, so it after the procession, it came back into the temple, did the rounds in the temple, the Lord was taken down, and then it slowly walked out of the temple and it walked to where it was tied. Look at the discipline, right? It turned around and faced the temple or the direction of the temple because it was some miles away, but it knows the journey. So it was facing the temple and then it bowed down, put both its tusk on the ground, but, lifted its trunk as though it is saying namaskar to God. And then it just fell sideways and breathed its last. Until today, if you go to the town of Guruvayur, you can see the statue of Keshavan. And every year on the specific day in the summer, right, a horde of elephants is taken to this statue of this great Keshavan the elephant, right? And one elephant will put a garland on Keshavan. This is bhakti. If you think only human beings can show bhakti, well, the story that I've just told you will tell you otherwise. Keshavan, the elephant of Guruvayur. Anytime any of you go to Guruvayur, ask the Keshavan elephant story, they will tell you. Okay? So it's very important, Shvetashvatara Upanishad said, this is how you should be self-disciplined. The story of Keshavan is a prime example of that. And then, of course, last week, was the crown, the crest jewel. I spoke about Brahma Anubhava Upanishad, Yajur-veda, right? And I said, the Yajur-veda is notable for one thing, if you remember, right? It rejects all forms of rituals and external religious observations. All forms. Declaring that the highest state of man is one that is dedicated entirely to knowledge and not intellectual type of knowledge, spiritual type of knowledge. Brahmajnani. And I said, that is what everyone should aim for. Brahmajnani you can only get when you move from Dvaitam to Advaitam, state of duality to non-duality. Right? Now, because it's Christmas, let me give you all a gift. Right? Let me talk to you about another Upanishad called Maitri Upanishad. Maitri. It's not been covered. So I'm just giving you all a gift, at least for those who've tuned in today, right? Maitri Upanishad, again, is part of the Shukla Yajur-veda. Some parts it's known as Maitrayaniya. Maitra means friend. So this is telling you how you should treat God as your friend, that inner Brahman as your friend, and how by that friendship, right? Again, in the concept of Navavida Bhakti, the 9 forms of devotion, right? One part is Sakhyam. One path of devotion is Sakhyam. Another part is servitude, Dashyam, right? Sakhyam is, for example, Krishna and who's his greatest friend? Sudamani, right? Like that, Sakhyam. Krishna washed his feet when he went to visit Krishna. Like that, this Maitrayani Upanishad tells you how to treat and make God your friend so that you can then regulate the constitution of your soul by that very friendship. And by doing that, you're actually liberating yourself from your true, your external self to your inner self, your true self, thereby reaching self-actualization. Because when you reach the stage of actual self-actualization, like Buddha did, all the suffering ended. He was still living in this world, but he did not suffer as much as he did when he realized he was a prince. He had all the luxuries, but he knew he could not control sickness. He could not control poverty. He could not control, destitution. Hence he went into dhyana and he became Buddha, one who has managed to control his buddhi. So that became Buddhism. So all of us can be Buddhas, How many of you actually do this dhyana? Dhyana. What do you get? What do you do? Dhyana doesn't mean simply closing your eyes for 10 minutes, but in your mind, you are still very much on earth thinking, tomorrow there is this meeting in the office. What should I wear? Which tie should I wear? Oh, you're silent, eyes closed, but mind is not closed. Mind is still open to all the things. That is why every time before I begin the session, I said, still the external, so that the mind can be stilled internally. As long as the external is alive, the internal will never be still. So let's recap, reinstate some of the learnings that we've got. Now, I've told you what each Upanishad focused on. What is the goal of life? The very word that I've been saying or repeating, self-actualization. To become completely aware and to be in touch with one's higher self. You remember, I spoke to you about the 2 birds in your life. One is sitting at a higher branch, one is sitting at a lower branch. The higher branch is just looking down at you and just observing everything that you do. That is your higher true self. The lower one is your external self, the body that you have got, the name that you have got, the form that you have got, and of course, all your habits, isn't it? Always eating every fruit on the branch, jumping from branch to branch. The upper one is just looking. That is your higher knowledge. The idea is for you to go up and merge with this one, right? So that there is no more birth after death. You return home to Brahman. Remember, I said the wheel is spinning, right? As long as you are on the wheel, on the spokes, you will continue to spin. But once you come to the middle part, then you've reached Brahman. See, the wheel is still spinning, but the middle part is. That's where you got to aim. Right? Remember, every individual has been placed on earth for a specific purpose. And they have duty, dharma, or they have karma as a result of the actions. They go together. What you do allows you to beget whatever you're getting. What you think and what you say also do the same thing. Right? People say, I don't have a good life. That is because all evil in this life is caused by the ignorance of the good. And the resulting failure is because you failed to perform your dharma. And so the karma. Good dharma, good karma. Bad dharma, bad karma. Simple as that. Right? Simple as that. Remember, karma, if not discharged correctly, will result in suffering, whether it is in this life or in the next life. Let me tell you, in the seventh avatar, right? In the lineage of the Dashavataram, right? Seventh avatar was Rama avatar, right? And the eighth avatar was Krishna avataram, right? What happened in Rama's life? What happened? One of his mother, Kaikeyi, what did she do? Sent him to Vanavasa for 14 years. Of course, his father, had no choice but to uphold his promise. Now, if a promise is not dharmic, that will also, you can't say, oh, but I discharge my promise. Yes, but the promise has to be dharmic. If the promise is adharmic, then you accrue consequences of that as well, right? So that was in the seventh avatar. Now, in the eighth avatar, Rama was born as Krishna. Kaikeyi was born as Yashoda. And Dasharatha was born as Vasudeva. Of course, what happened to Vasudeva and Yashoda? They were imprisoned by Kamsa. Now, you know how long they were in prison before Krishna went and released them. So this is a conversation between Maitreya. These were Krishna's, what do you call, the charioteer, right? After Krishna went and released Yashoda and Vasudeva, right? Released them and then, of course, gave them, whatever status they need. Maitreya was asking Lord Krishna, Krishna, you are Bhagavan himself. You could have released them from the time you were born at any point in time. But you didn't. You waited all these years. Why? And Krishna is explaining to Maitreya, that is because in my previous life, I was Rama. My mother in this birth, Yashoda, was Kaikeyi. And my father in this birth, Vasudeva, was Dasharatha. Because they sent me to Vanavasa for 14 years, in this life, they had to go through the consequences of being imprisoned for 14 years. There you go. It doesn't matter who you are. Karma. Karma, if not discharged correctly, results in suffering. And I tell you something, right? Everybody's karma is individual. You have an individual account. Right? So, for example, right, I have an account, right? My wife has an account. My two daughters have an account. I can put money into the account. But whose money does it become? Mine or theirs? My money has become theirs. And they can do what they want with that money. What they do is entirely up to them. And of course, they will enjoy the consequences, whether it's good or bad. So this false belief, this completely misplaced conception, misunderstanding that if I pray for my child's karma will be dissolved, is foolish, to use one word, right? Of course, you can pray. That's not a problem, right? Prayers do have some benefits. It may delay, prolong, or make that karma a bit more sustainable in terms of the consequences endured by your child. But it cannot, C-A-N-N-O-T, in capital letters, bold, bright light shining like that. It cannot eradicate anyone else's karma. Only they themselves can do it, right? Of course, as parents, you do things, that's different. But I'm talking purely from a karmic perspective, right? Everybody has to discharge their own karmas. Otherwise, this continuity, life cycle, punarjanmaha, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, that one continues. You see, the concept of this karma was never intended as a, universally deterministic rule, which everybody thinks, oh, I'm fated because of karma. No. It is a simple mechanism to tell you whatever you think, whatever you say, whatever you do will bear consequences. So what you should do as a result of this mechanism, it's a key that you put inside the ignition. When you turn it on, the car starts. And this one is telling you, make sure you know where to put it, how to turn it so that it starts. So think, speak, and do. Everything must be in harmony. Right? Every individual has to manage their own karma. I also told you when I spoke to you about karma, how some people are born, after 3 days the baby dies. Parents and everybody will come and say, oh my God, what a big thing this is, oh my God, it's fated, it's ill fate, this, that, everything. No, what a blessing it is. You and I are living and suffering the pangs of this life. This child has come for 3 days, suffered and then died. That's because the karmic debt has been settled. No need to live anymore, right? So you will live for as long as your karmic debts are not settled. But you see, the point is, we are not just settling our karmic debts, we are accruing more and more karma, isn't it? By the way we think, by the way we speak, and by the way we act. So how can there be, this is the last life for me kind of thing? How can the transmigration of soul happen so that you're never born again? Because your dharma is not being discharged because you've accrued more karma. That's why I said to you, in this life, you have the power to control. You have the power to control. Cycle of birth and death, you have the power to cut it. Control your thoughts, control your speech, and control your actions. Otherwise, it becomes difficult, isn't it? Because I say, you are the Atman, you are the Brahman. Don't go outside, go inside and see. To escape the endless cycle of this samsara, right? That is why you see in the Ashtotra Shathanamavali, right? Every god has got 108 names. And even this I've spoken, right? They've got, one name, one line, Mula Mantra. They've got 3 lines, Gayatri Mantra. They have 4 lines, Stotra. They have, Shuktas. And then they have, Shodasa, which is 16 names. And then they have Ashtotram, which is 108 names. Then they have Sati, which is 300 names. Then Shaptashati, which is 700 names. Then they have a Sahasrara, which is 1000. Many people say 1008. No. Sahasrara means 1000 names. One name for any god, whether it's a female aspect of Shakti or a male aspect of Shiva, whatever you want to call it, right? Rama, Krishna, whatever, right? Or Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Parvati, Kali, whatever you want to call it. One of the names is called Samsara Dukashayaharaya Namaha. That divine energy that has the power to eradicate the cycle of life, which is transfused with Sukha and Dukha. Indeed, I think in Swami's Ashtotram also, I think it's number 91, if I'm not mistaken. Om Sri Sai Samsara Dukashayaharaya Namaha. What does it mean? And I've always said to you, whether you're singing bhajans or you're reciting kirtans or reciting mantras, what is it that you're saying? With what state of mind you're saying? With what state of awareness that you're saying? And what is the benefit that you hope to get as a result of saying it? That is the state of self-realization. If everything you do, you are doing it with that state of level, that level of realization, that level of awareness, then you have no fear because you are there. Right? So the other thing that these Upanishads have done is give us the 4 Mahavakyas. Chatur Mahavakya, right? The more you repeat these Mahavakyas, the more your mind gets purified. The more it promotes introspection, introspection. And of course, insight. Introspection and insight. And this introspection and insight will lead to transcendental states of awareness that will bridge you from being here present in the world to taking you across the bridge to self-actualization, self-knowledge, self-actualization. Prajnanam Brahma, 1 Mahavakya. Brahman, ultimate reality, supreme. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahma Asmi. I am Brahman, the Supreme Self. Tat Tvam Asi. That thou art. And the fourth one is I am Atman Brahman. The true me. I am Atman Brahma. The true self is Brahman, ultimate reality. So if you take nothing away from the Upanishads, take these four Mahavakyas. Of the four, take one. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Right? You took choice. I did Bhagavad Gita with you. I said you have four paths. Path of action, Karma Yoga. Path of knowledge, Jnana Yoga. Path of bhakti, path of devotion, Bhakti Yoga. And path of meditation, Dhyana Yoga. Or Raja Yoga it's called. Choose one path. Don't have to do all. Choose one. And to give you an example, I've always referred to myself. I said, my path is Jnana Yoga. So if people ask me, oh, you're not doing any seva, I said, this is my seva. Because this is my path. If I said I'm a karma yogi, then I have to do karmic actions that benefits the mass. If I said I'm following the path of Dhyana Yoga, then I should become a yoga teacher, teaching Dhyana and the Yoga Shastras, according to Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Right? I'm Jnana Yoga. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. You see, you must realize one thing, right? When I did Mundaka Upanishad with you, I spoke to you about the power of the Om. Now let me tell you, Om is the bow. Atman is the arrow. Brahman is the mark. And who is releasing it? Your mind, Manas. Only with a clear, pure and undistracted mind can you release the bow, which is Om, so that the arrow, which is your Atman, can go and hit the mark, which is Brahman. When the mark is hit, there is merging. Mundaka Upanishad. Katha Upanishad said the self never dies. It is never born. It never dies. The body takes shape each time the soul transmigrates. The soul has not sprung from anything, neither does it dissolve into anything. It is birthless, eternal, everlasting, and ancient. The body is killed, the body dies, but not the soul. So much of focus is on the body. After death, the relatives will come and cry when the guy was alive and the person was alive. No phone call, nothing, complete ignorance, complete. The person dies, come and cry. For what? The body doesn't hear you. The body is dead. You're either going to bury it or burn it. What's the point of crying to that body? You know, when that person is alive, do something. Because the soul is already gone. Whatever it has accumulated in this life is carried by the soul that will determine the next. So it sits in a transit lounge before the next flight is determined. Right? So what causes that problem? Mind. Prashna Upanishad said. Solve your mind. Resolve. Resolve in your mind never to mind things that don't matter. Right? Last week I told you, when things matter, mind doesn't matter. When mind matters, things don't matter. But what should really matter is mind over matter. I also spoke to you about the subtle self, the gross self, and the pure self. And I did Katha Upanishad with you. And when I did Isha Upanishad, I told you about the seer. What you see verily defines what your understanding of your perception is. You know, what you see cannot become the definition of someone else's perception. It will become you. You know, you show people something and then you say, what do you think about this? You know, if you show 4 people, they will tell you 4 different things. So when I see something, I don't see it according to another person's vision. another person's visuals, another person's perception, another person's conception, another person's understanding. I see it according to my own, according to the limitations of my own thoughts, words, and actions, according to the limitations of my own character, according to the limitations of my own ability, capacity, capability. Isha Upanishad. Every single Upanishad, it's like a surgeon's knife, cutting, removing the tumor of ignorance, ajnana. And in the end, it tells you one thing, right? It tells you that intellectual pursuits lead to intellectual ends. It only gives you certain type of intellect, which is materialistic. But the spiritual truths cannot be apprehended by materialistic intellectual understanding. It can only be understood by one's own spiritual evolution and self-actualization. Therefore, you need to think. Therefore, you need to speak. And therefore, you need to do what you need to do for yourself to evolve to that stage. Not what Vignesh is doing, or what Raja is doing, or what Krishna is doing, or what Ganesh is doing. You need to do what you need to do. You need to think, speak, and act so that it comes to you. So my question, my departing question for you is, what are you going to do with whatever you have learned? Because if there is no self-transformation, then you wasted 15 weeks. If there is no self-transformation, you have absolutely wasted your time. And where does self-transformation begin? It begins in your thoughts. Some things that you think, the way you think, will have to change, must change, not should, must. As a result of this change in your thoughts, some things that you say must endure some changes as well. And what is your best, yardstick of measure of that? People will tell you, brother, something about you has changed. The way you speak, for example, is completely changed. Something has overcome. That is your yardstick of measure. And of course, when you think and speak in a certain alignment, your actions will also manifest in the same way. Therefore, what you have got is Trikarana Suddhi, first stage of attaining self-actualization, where you're in harmony in what you say as a result of what you have taught and as a consequence of what you do. And you get this chance to reflect and introspect and have an insight through the coursework question that I have given, which Brother Ganesh will share in a couple of minutes. But these are the basis on which the Upanishads have been set. It's to trigger, it's all trigger points. To trigger something that will lead to something that will end as something else. So have you been triggered? If so, in what way? What is going to change? How is it going to change? And how will that change impact you in your life? And how will your changes in your life impact others around you? The end of the day is service. If you live your life without service to anyone, it's a waste. But don't worry. Punarjanmaha, you'll get. Right? So as I said to you, right, this journey may have ended. The last Sunday of 2021 brings an end to 15 weeks of Upanishads. But the plans for 2022 and beyond still continue. Obviously, these are just thoughts, my thoughts, right? Of course, we'll sit and plan with Bro Ganesh, right? Always call him my charioteer, because I just have to tell him where I want to go, and he charts the journey, right? So my heartfelt thanks to him, and of course my dear sister Dushi, who was, painstakingly read the questions and asked them so that I may be able to answer some of them to the best of my knowledge all these weeks, right? Remember, the best answer you can get to any question comes from your own self. It's called reflection. So the journey will continue, right? We plan to do some courses, building on what has been delivered. No point in doing something new each time when we cannot develop and evolve from what we've already got. Maybe one or two new courses, I don't know. If we can find, time, place, space, and of course, divine grace, then we can even do some short residential courses. As I said, these are just my thoughts at this point in time. Educational yatras, India and beyond, because many people don't know what a great heritage they belong to. Right? So one of the things that, I would like to do with obviously approval from upstairs, right? Divine grace, anugraha, right? Is, to take a small group of people each time to different places and tell them what has happened here and why is this place important from a spiritual perspective and how you can use the energy in that place to develop and enhance your own spiritual energy. So that is, those are my plans. And let's see what comes to light, what materializes. So, Anyada Sharanam Nasti Tvameva Sharanam Mamaha Tasmat Karunya Bhavena Raksha Sarveshwaraha Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Sarveshwaraya Namam Namaha. Over to you, brother Ganesh.
Sai Ram. So, Brother Vic, would you like to just talk us through the question?
Yeah, as you can see, the question is, what I've asked you is, let me just read what I've said. Yeah, it's a short essay question. Please read and reflect on the following question and draft your, and I put in brackets, insightful response. And not many, 500 words, Sometimes with the divine, you need to know how to communicate concisely and precisely, right? Because they're not interested in long time stories, right? Or long pitched stories, so short and sweet. So please do not cite any shlokas from this point or that point or any other point, any stotras. I do not want to read any Sanskrit because I've read enough, right? So don't give me Sanskrit verses and then give me the explanation. That is not what I want. What I want is, right, you to reflect on this 15 weeks and on your own, in your own words, tell me what you have learned. Having listened to and participated for the last 15 weeks on the wisdom of the Upanishads, what has impacted you the most? And how do you intend to or plan to use the knowledge that you have gained from this course to engender some form of transformation in your life? What is it that you would do to change that life that you're living as a priority? And why would you want to do that? What do you hope to get from that? This is the question that I would like everyone to reflect on and write up to 500 words, right? In your own words, tell me, brother, I've listened to this and this is my thought process, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to change, whatever, right? I have to read and you have to come out of what you have written to me, right? Not a cut and paste from, Wikipedia or some of these sources, right? I get enough of that hellish, devilish work from my students. I don't need it from my spiritual students. Your own thoughts. That is the most powerful thing.